It's very
short
short.
one?
Yeah, it's pepper delisk. It's a kind of it's a delicacy. If you have a taste of that, it tastes like garlic. And I just say to myself, I'll change.
So what's your next plan then?
Gosh.
What do you call this in Italy? Or do you have a name?
Dulce, yeah.
Call it
They
dulce
call
in
it
Italy?
dulce, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Right. If it takes 3 steps, it's a foul. I would love to see the man. I would love to see the man who called a foul up there.
I know.
I had no clue what I was supposed to be doing.
You thought you were playing with us.
It's worth remembering that many of our very earliest Irish Christian saints would have been directly and quite recently descended from pagan ancestry. Their parents or their grandparents could have been practicing Druids, or at least have taken Druidic beliefs and principles very seriously. And at the core of those beliefs was a deeply spiritual relationship with the natural world. A relationship that wasn't abandoned entirely when the country as a whole converted to Christianity. Much of its influence was retained, and there's no doubt that it had a profound effect on the character of the early Irish Church. So it's hardly surprising, therefore, that what pagans would have regarded as openings into the womb of Mother Earth, the Christians blessed and continued to revere as holy wells. So why is that relevant in this day and age? It's relevant because many of our modern rural settlements, such as the one I'm visiting today, were founded originally by those early Irish saints. And not only have these places endured for over 1,000 years, the generations who inhabited them, I believe, also retain something of that deeply spiritual connection to the natural world. Welcome to the village and the ancient parish of Kilkar in the southwest of Donegal. The phrase God's own country is not one that 6th century saints would have been familiar with, but they certainly wouldn't have questioned the literal truth that it contained. And in God's country, no matter how wild or untamed, you didn't just build a church wherever you felt like it because you liked the view. Planning permission had to be sought in the form of a sign from the Almighty, and approval would only be granted if the pure of heart had chosen the exact place indicated by that sign. So when St. Carha came up to this part of Donegal in the year 540 AD to do penance for past misdeeds, we're told, he would have been unaware of his own saintliness, and not at all sure if he was worthy to build a church, never mind where he might do so. Tradition has it that he landed his boat here at Fintra Beach and immediately encountered a deer which was carrying a cross on its back. He followed the deer in a westerly direction until it reached a small hill overlooking a steep inlet of the sea. There the deer deposited the cross, and there St. Carha built his church. He must have got it right, because over 1,500 years later it's still standing. Well, a good bit of it is, overlooking the modern village of Kilkar, whose name means the Church of Carha. It was in the grounds of this ancient walled church and graveyard that I met with local historian and author Dennis Lyons, or, to give the Irish form of his name, because this is a Gaeltacht area and he is a native speaker, Donogha O'Lyon. As such, he would be keener than most to preserve the older place names of the area.
This, where we are, the townland where we are here now, that was called Naclania. Naclania. And Naclania is a Gaelic name, and it would get its name from a rough, slopey land coming down from the higher ground, coming down towards the river, and that would flatten out to the sachs or homes, as they're being called in this area here.
That could nearly apply to every hillside around here, mind you, couldn't it? That could really.
There's a lot of rough ground, you know.
There is indeed. Well, the rough ground here, you have other names for this place as well, which is interesting, right? Kilcar is the official name of the town, which would be the Church of Carha, in other words, right? And here is that original church. But you have other names for the place. Carolia is one of them, for example.
The Carolia would be when the English 1610, around that there, when they divided the Ulster plantation, when they divided on landlords and stuff like this here. So this area was given to the Hamiltons. It was poor land that was here, and it started at the bridge here in Kilkar here, and it went on out as far as the coast, out at Teelan Bay. The English, they called it the Grey Quarter.
The Grey Quarter.
The Grey Quarter. So it was all Gaelic was spoken in this area here, so they weren't long translating it over to the Cathulia.
Oh, that's funny, because it started off as an English term, the Grey Quarter.
It was the English that called it the Grey Quarter.
And that was translated into Irish?
Yes.
Right, which is the reverse of what usually happens,
it would have been, you know, but we're still talking about going back about 400 years.
So the Leah or the Grey would refer to the stony ground.
Yes, it would be.
Well, the other name that you have for it, or one that you used when you were as a child as well, was Ballandrahead, the town, the bridges.
Yes. Well, Ballandrahead, as you can see there behind us here, there's 4 bridges coming into it. There are 2 bridges on the Glen of Balladou River, and the Glen Adra has 2 bridges as well. So there are 2 rivers coming down both sides of the town.
So you're spoiled for choice as regarding names of the place as well?
Well, there's lots of names, but there are a lot of them dying out now because the Gaelic is not as strong as it used to be.
Well, if you view your way, you'll keep them alive for a bit longer, for the next generation or 2.
Right.
Anyway. But this, is it fair to say, Dennis, that people will still regard this as the heart of the parish here, this church building here?
Oh, it really is.
It really is.
It really is, you know, because, I mean, if you're from Kilcar, it is Kilcar.
Townland names can accumulate in layers over the centuries according to land use. And Dennis tells me that the old townland of Nacleana, on which we're standing, is also known, for obvious reasons, as Baya and Champel, or Church Town. The church in question probably dates back to the 1200s, replacing previous wooden structures going all the way back to St. Carha's day in the 6th century. There's no telling how old some of these grave markers may be, but the holy wells in the vicinity of the church may be older than any other human imprint here, and remarkably remain in use during the tourist or stations, which are still held on the 4th of March every year, the feast day of St. Carha. After the plantation of Ulster, the old church was used by the local Protestant community from 1610 until 1828, when the new St. Matthew's Church of Ireland was built in the village below. Around the same time, when the penal laws were relaxed, a new Catholic church was built where now stands the parish hall. But in 1904, we're told, local Catholic and Protestant people alike gave of their time and energy to raise the spectacular St. Carha's Church, which stands cathedral-like overlooking the town and district. Burials of both religions continued in the ancient graveyard, and it is perhaps a measure of the good relations that existed in Kilcar that the graves of the parish priest, Father James Carr, and the Church of Ireland rector, the Reverend Hill Benson, who died in 1835 and 1837 respectively, lie side by side below the portal of the old St. Carha's Church. I'm indebted to Dennis Lyons for sharing his inexhaustible lore with me, but I'm not sure how grateful I should be to him for introducing me to another Kilcar tradition. Don't worry, he told me, I'm the referee and I'll be keeping order. John Joe McBurty, a veteran of many a hole ball encounter, let me know how unlikely that would be. There's a mad crew out here today.
Well, there's a mad crew, Joe.
I mean, we're talking about a game that it's very old.
Do you reckon the Coast Guard people that worked in Teelan that brought this game here, and that the local people picked up on it?
This is what the Coast Guards did in their idle moments.
I suppose they hadn't much to do.
Not much to do. And it's played along the road.
It's played along the road,
that means that we have to stand back because there's a car coming now. And the cars here would be used to this kind of carry on, would they?
Well, they are now. There was no cars. There would have been no cars back in the day.
Obviously not, no.
I remember my father telling me about this, that he would be coming on the road, maybe heading for the town, him and the brothers, and they live just out the road here.
Aye.
And this game might be on a Sunday evening, or Sunday afternoon, and they would join in But most of the time, they would nearly have to go back home to change again.
Is that
It
right?
would be that rough.
They'd be clattered.
Well, you can imagine, there were no tire on the roads or
But
nothing.
these are men, now how should I put this delicately? These are men of a certain vintage, right? They're not, some of them are not on the first flush of youth, if you know what I mean. Not unlike ourselves, of course, you know.
You mean the ones here?
The ones here I'm talking about.
We're
now.
not.
No, but at the same time, I mean, there's a great enthusiasm about them altogether. And they have two teams. Right?
Two teams, yeah.
They have green hats and pink hats.
And pink hats.
Right? I have a wee diagram here.
Well, you have, yeah.
Yes. They're actually wee pink men and wee green men as
There
well.
are, yeah.
All right. So there's a goalkeeper here by the looks of things, right?
There's a goalkeeper, so
And he's minding the creel, or the hole,
that's right.
where the ball
Yeah.
is meant to go.
Yeah.
Do we have a creel?
There's
Do
a
we
creel,
have-
yeah, we have a creel up here.
It's up on that end up there. Okay, so he's the man on the far end, the furthest away man.
Yeah,
He's minding the creel. And the object of the game is what for the other team to get
for the other team to keep us from actually getting the ball in the hole.
in the hole, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right. And how can you stop people? Are you allowed to sort of physically manhandle them or anything like that?
Yeah, whatever I'd say.
So you
you
just
know,
use any means you can to stop them.
any means.
I have
You're
a hat
joining
here
us.
as well. What does it say on this?
Kilcar.
Kilcar whole ball team, right? What does it say in the pink ones? Same thing.
The same thing.
Right. Okay.
Right. Here. Give it back. Give it back. Give it back. No.
We have to stop the pink guys from getting the ball.
That's right.
Why did you say that in the first place? You call that a throw? Hold on to this yard.
Get down,
I don't have it at all. I don't know where it is.
Get off it. It's mine.
Right. No rules whatsoever.
The moon and Muckross Point are two things that Michael McCluskey keeps a close eye on, because the moon controls the tide, and the tide will dictate whether or not Michael will be able to harvest the seaweed that grows in such profusion on Muckross Point. And the seaweed has become Michael's livelihood. People have been gathering seaweed for food and fertiliser for countless generations in this part of the world. Usually, that has ended up in their own kitchens or on their own fields. But the products extracted from this harvest are destined to end up in places where they've never heard of Muckross Point or Kilkar. Michael's business partner is an Italian woman called Rosaria Pizzeri, who for the past 20 years or so has been applying her experience in wine production to the development of a whole range of products from various kinds of seaweed. And together they've started a little cottage industry here which sells those products all over the world. First, of course, you have to get the seaweed, which is why we're out on Muckross Point on a cold December day, and the moon and the tide are not in an obliging mood.
Michael, this tide isn't really ideal for what you want to do. Sure, it's not. I mean,
No,
it's
it's
not
not.
out far enough.
Yeah, it's not really suitable for us today now. We usually have a suitable tide more closer to the new moon.
Right. Okay. But you still have a fair bit of seaweed exposed here.
We have.
But are you interested in all of the seaweed
Yes.
or just some of it?
We cut about 30 different types of seaweeds.
30 different
Yeah,
types?
30,
And-
32.
Are there 30 different types of seaweed here?
There's more than 30. There are about 500 types on the west coast.
But here in Muckross Head here.
Yeah, well, when the tide go down, you would get at least 150 of them here.
Get away.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and like, do they have different uses, each of these seaweed?
Every one of them has different uses. We use this one here, for example, for food. You can actually eat it raw as it is.
Is that what I'll call dulse?
Dullusk, yeah.
Dullusk, you call it?
yeah.
Dullusk.
Yeah.
Right, and that's
You can actually eat that.
You could eat as it stands now at the moment, right, with it.
Yeah.
And it's that lovely mixture of red and bits of green through
Yes,
it.
yeah.
So it's almost like
The green is spirulina.
spirulina. I've heard of that.
Yeah. It's
supposed to be very good for you.
Very good. A lot of iron in it.
So this is good food anyway.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And do you have to do anything with it whenever you get it back up?
We usually take it back up and dry it and make powder of it as a kind of an easy apply to different other foods, you know.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the dullisk, as you call it, or dulse. I'm
yeah.
going to move around the back
Yeah.
of you here to this one.
This is cornbo or kelp.
Kelp.
Yeah.
This is what they would have used in the old days in the kelp industry, is to get iodine and stuff
That's
like
right,
that.
yeah. That is correct. And we use it through the cosmetics.
Right. So that's for cosmetics.
That's for cosmetics. I'll cut this one here for you.
That's the one that's just grown at our feet.
That's Fucus serratus. We use that for the bath as well.
I came across this before.
Yeah.
And there was a man up in Temple Crone who has a hair and beauty shop, and he used that and he dried that out, and I was astonished. Even after it was dried out, when you put it into the hot water, the oil
comes back,
just comes pouring out of it.
Yeah.
That's the Fucus serratus.
Yeah.
You see these ones here now at our feet.
Yeah.
They're going to grow much bigger.
They'll go on to about 12 inches long.
12 inches long, so they're just starting off. And how long would it take them to do that?
It should be ready to cut in about March or April.
So one season?
Yeah, one season, yeah.
So every year you get a harvest of these things as well?
We were harvesting here now this last 10 years.
All right, on the same area?
Same area, yeah.
So it's just like a crop?
A crop, yeah.
In December, we're just outside the optimum cropping season, which runs from April right through to November. Nonetheless, our efforts on this occasion have yielded a reasonable haul, which is taken back to base a short drive away. Here it's laid out on racks, rinsed only with seawater to preserve that saltiness, and then allowed to dry outdoors, weather permitting, or indoors with the aid of humidifiers. If it's only basic food you're after, then this is the end product. But if you've got imagination, an understanding of the science involved, and a bit of Italian flair, then this is really only the raw material for a whole range of dietary, health and beauty products whose efficacious powers Rosaria and Michael believe in implicitly. So much so that they've turned their conviction into a business, selling the produce of the South Donegal coast to a worldwide like-minded clientele. For the moment, Rosaria and I are confronted with 3 bags full of carnigine moss, of dulse, and some dried kelp or laminaria.
You as an Italian, you just said Italian, that wasn't really part of the Italian cooking tradition at all.
No, you have to go back to the Romans if you want to learn about seaweed, yeah.
How did you personally come into contact with this whole seaweed business then in that case?
Well, I was working for a company making products for winemaking. And one of the products was aimed to be used as a fertilizer in agriculture.
Right.
So there was an extraction from one of the seaweed, it's called Ascophyllum. It's diluted in water and then sprayed on the leaves of the plant.
vines?
Yeah.
Right.
And it makes fruits sweeter. It's reinforcing the plant. It's a biostimulant, they call it. It's not a fertilizer.
Biostimulant?
Biostimulant, yeah.
Okay. So that was the first contact, the first use you had for seaweed and all that.
Then in 1997, my friend, a woman I used to go in holiday with, and my real friend, she got cancer. And so I thought maybe the seaweed is so good for the plants, could be good also for cancer. So I decided to start going in some place and get books and study about it. And so I studied quite a lot. In the meantime, unfortunately, she died, but I kept this passion because I discovered such a deep world into seaweed, so many researches made, abandoned by the pharmaceutical companies, obviously, because they are not interested in much in nature itself. And so I kept trying to understand if there was really something good for the health in the seaweed.
Right, so these are all food, all three of these
the only
plants?
difference is that this one you don't eat, really.
You don't eat
just boil it and then take out the water from it, the gel from it.
Right.
And this one, then you can throw it in the garden as a fertilizer if you want to.
Okay.
But this one, no, you can eat straight out.
This is this is the dulse or dullisk,
Yeah.
as you have learnt to call it.
Yeah.
What do you call this in Italy, or do you have a name?
Dulse, yeah.
Call it
They
dulse in
dulse,
Italy.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Right. Sorry, I should have asked permission to eat that. You don't mind right now? No. And this one, which
And
I
this
haven't.
is the laminaria, yeah.
This is the dried laminaria, and is that for food as well?
Yes.
And how would you
Well,
eat
this
that?
was the first seaweed that the Italian people learned to eat, not having any tradition of seaweed.
Right.
Because you can simply boil it with the beans, you know,
Right.
when you cook the beans.
Yeah.
And then you can take out the seaweed, and the beans will not give you flatulence in the stomach.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's
So
well.
they used to cook this one for that very reason
That
at the
very
very
reason.
beginning. Yeah.
We haven't learned to do that in Ireland quite yet.
Yeah.
In countries like Japan and China, the cultivation of seaweed is already a huge and well-established business. And in Ireland, there are quite a few companies like Rosaria's and Michael's joining this burgeoning international industry. It's an industry based on the traditional practice of harvesting the fruits of the sea in a sustainable way, just as generations have done before and continue to do so in some measure, sustaining the people as well as the environment, that is. And other traditional practices are also sustaining the local economy, providing livelihoods and supporting lifestyles here, as we'll find out in my next visit to Kilkar.